Hi everybody, thank you very much for joining me. Polina here, chatting to you a little bit about the month of September. Here is a little painting I've repainted from a while back. I hope you like it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about September month. So to me, Virgo is opening us super wide and super comfortably. I think that is going to be a really nice upgrade for many of us. I think that these fresh vibes and ideas or just notions and like, did you see this? Or like, wow, did you know this? Are very carefully woven and knit into a really fine collection of lives and a very beautiful collective of people is to come from it. So I think there's going to be one step and another, and there's going to be just such a nice sense of fineness and refinement to this particular here and now. So when I'm feeling things out, usually for Virgos, or Virgo time, there's just so much work that we put into things that we never really had to do. And there's so much of us that is not open or that is not found because we have so many different things that we are tired of. So that's the thing that I'm going to bring up first. Maybe did you do so many things, and did you try to make so many things happen in your life? Did you do so many things at the same time? Did you make so many mistakes, or did you have to face so much karma, so much harshness, or did you make the same mistake again and again? So these cycles have already fallen off for me, as for many other people. I think that Leo had to grind and break us free eventually. So it was kind of a tight energy, and then eventually it basically had to evolve into something. And sure, a lot of things should have just basically become obsolete or even broken or no longer nurturing, and that was really hard for me, as I'm sure that a lot of us are still kind of trying to put our minds together as to what the world is and how does it work and what was I part of before. And it can be very dangerous to try and remember what happened or try to put the psyche into like a logical state. So being very logical, very true and very turned up and like turned on person during this type of time is very hard, but Virgo is going to make it very soft and honest for us. So basically, because we've done so much work and because we've been a part of so many people's lives, or because we've tried so many things, or because we've burnt ourselves down to a husk so many times in certain people's cases, we had to do it differently. So this is where Virgo has come, and she's basically trying to help us make things not so painful and make our lives not feel so strong. So this is not about the hero's journey anymore. It's just about like, how are you going? Fine? Good. How are you going? Like, are you going well? Did you bring yourself up well last few months? Like me, do you also bring yourself up? Or like, do you also make your own money, for example? Or do you have lots of friends? Like, what's your karma like? It's very nice, softening energy, and it's a casual relationship that Virgo wants to bring forward through us and within us. So there's not a lot of mind, and it's not very like tacky like how it usually is. So I think that for a lot of people that might be very uncomfortable. So when you are so conscious and very open, you stop trying to know stuff anymore, and you stop trying to imagine stuff. So that means that you start to just see things as they are and see the world as a perfect place. That's been very hard for me and a lot of people I know, also because we're so logical and we're so rational, and we really want to make meanings out of things, and that is not something that is necessarily taught. It's just how people have enjoyed themselves for the last while, for a long time, like over a century. I think that people have been trying to basically mind things and know stuff and remember things and try to put things into sequences as part of their work in the world or as part of their journey in the universe. And I don't think so this time. So I think it's about mellowing. I think it's more about relationships that we should be having and things that we should be eating, or like parts of the world where we should be living, or things that we should be saying, without that experimentation and also that harsh compromise that I think a lot of us have to go through because of that said experimentation. So what I mean is, less is more during this particular time. I think that a lot of us have to understand where we have overdone things, we've overcooked things, we've over emitted, or we have over created or overcrafted. In which situations did we live that eventually brought to us lack of kindness, lack of hospitality, or lack of hope, while we still really did what we thought was best to do. So I think that we have to basically close up this battle within ourselves and our hearts and with our guidelines, and try to look at things from a fresher, more caring perspective. I think that a lot of us have thought ourselves into an oblivion, and a lot of people I know also, as may you also, have done the best thing, thinking that was the best thing they could do, or they have fought themselves in the world and applied so much effort and gone through so much stuff just to be there, or just to be placed in a kind of a certainty. It's like, for example, to keep a relationship going, to keep a business going, to keep a certain adventure going, to keep a timeline going, to keep up to scratch on things. A lot of people had to do some very embarrassingly sad and unhappy things, but also, like, I think that we as a collective or as a culture just really wish to be something we weren't. And I do understand that people did a lot of stuff to try and keep up, with the world. Like, there's, like, say, plastic surgery, and then there's, like, extreme muscle building, and then there's this obsession with, like, say, paleo diet, or like, intermittent fasting, which is actually not so bad. But like, people really, really wanted to be something, and they really wanted to be somebody, and they've also combined with energies and people and certain situations in their world that would help them do that. So I think that quite a lot of people have to wake up. We don't have a lot of time. I think not many people really have the time to evolve certain things in their life. I think many people don't have the time to jump quick from one thing to another, like, say, driving and then walking around the supermarket, coming home, making a meal, going to the gym, like, just another journey. I think that a lot of these territories and these environments and natural ways to be and natural ways to respect and represent yourself are starting to burn dry. And I think that most of us that have allowed there to be kind of a crash or like a crack in our systems during Leo, August, and we have allowed ourselves to be kind of vulnerable and vulnerabilized, and we've let ourselves speak less, or we let ourselves have some time and realize, well, we're going the wrong way. We have the capacity to make things matter now. So basically, because there was kind of a break up or like a breakthrough in consciousness, and there was kind of a no avail. So sometimes in Leo, you just want, like, the highs. I just want the highs. I want the best. But there wasn't, and there was, like, a humbling. That nervous energy ended, and now it's like, okay, cool, I can just be fine like this. This is just fine. Like, this is just fine. I think that many, many people have to suffice also without wishing to suffice, and that's really hard. Some people begin things that they cannot actually fathom or take further than a certain state, but they really want to be there. And also, we don't have enough resources, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money to fund certain projects, we don't have enough opportunities, we don't have enough possibilities. So I think that on some level, some resources or some creative ideas even have run dry, and there's a dryness. Just thinking about it, in terms of, like, being somebody beyond your means, cooking up so many different projects, or trying to drive your life to a certain type of limit, and actually not understanding the resources that you need in order to make it work. So the cogs that are underneath everything, and how to make things work. So it's not just about counting on miracles and letting God do the work. It's not just like that, though for some people definitely is. We do have Earth traveling through Pisces, of course, as we are traveling through Virgo with the Sun. So there is, like, a very, very big idea that sometimes people still want to crack through, or they still want to get by, and that lack of inner connection and spiritual creative connection to the universe makes these very high and low giant spiritualities or huge religious remarks, and that is a no-go zone. So if you are somebody who has not being conscious enough, or if something happened and you go into this kind of like psychotic, emotional, or spiritual land where you believe that God will make it so, or you believe that, you know, Christ is among us, amongst the living, and all of that stuff. Like, you know, when people go into that extreme, like, I'm going to live my next life so much better than this life, you know, any religion, any spirituality, that's going to start to be very burdenful and very worthless. So I'm feeling that in terms of cryptocurrencies as well, spiritual currency, yeah, we're looking at that, you know, like things becoming worthless with time. Also, I'm feeling that high quantum spirituality and large numbers of people believing in certain things, or people repeating words from the Bible or any kind of religious text, or starting to carry themselves as if they are with that mindset or that might behind them, isn't going to be as conscious or as open as before. So maybe before, lots of doors opened and lots of communities kind of met each other on that level through belief and faith in the big word. At the moment, in terms of bigness and faithfulness, or like having these giant steps, giant shoes, you know, having this big heaving chest or having this big might isn't actually something that is very probable, and it's not really available. So Virgo is going to diminish. I'm really actually happy and open for this. Very curious about this, how it's going to be. Usually, this kind of feeling sometimes makes people uncomfortable. It's like diminishing. It's like having less objects, or having less bulk, having less body, or having less energy, or having less to do. A very, very big part of me now, actually, just sharing, understands now and recognizes how blessed I've always been in these lulls, you know. So when we have a diminishing energy, a diminishing time, so this could be like less people come to your show, or like say less money goes through your bank, or like less people give you work, or like less energy you have for certain things. Like that diminishing is actually a very, very sacred and very wanted energy, because all the world works within a certain type of you know, system, like physical system, and diminishing aspects or agents or things that make things disappear, or things that disappear with time, are actually a purifying part of the system. So this thing that's happening, I feel, is like we want to learn how to be okay. I think a lot of people want to learn how to be okay with less. And it's not just being okay with less, but understanding what is the diminishing or diminutive part, and then what is the expanding part. Because, like, for example, if you can imagine, you grow cells, but then you also kill cells. So when you have a body that's only producing cells, if you can imagine, and a body produces, there's probably statistics on this, a lot of cells every single hour, every single minute, every moment a body is open to producing more. Imagine if you never killed any cells. So you basically grow into this giant elephant if you never actually killed any of your cells. So that's a very interesting thing to think about it. So like, also if you can imagine, there's like a certain type of tree that would never shed a leaf. It would only grow. You know, it's like there's only growth. If there's just growth, then it just becomes a mess. You know, so it becomes an avalanche of things and becomes chaos, and we cannot any further take some things. So in terms of not being able to take things further, I think that's a really important thing to talk about. I can't take it further. You know, so it's like, for example, I know that I am funding something that I shouldn't be funding, or that I'm involved in something that I shouldn't be involved in, or I am taking care of myself badly because I am giving all my energy towards that other thing. So not being able to carry that other person, or that burden, or that bulbous project, that is something that we have to understand. And also, a lot of people will not be able to enter certain situations because they won't allow that person to be there. So, for example, a person is very bulbous, or very annoying, or very temperamental, or very egoic, might not be actually available to show up at a certain circumstance. Or like certain doors will just not open for a certain person. There's certain people that will not be available. And that sometimes is very, very good, and it's not something to be heavy-hearted about. So certain situations, certain people, certain environments, strategies, experiences, jobs, they can't house or they cannot afford something. We shouldn't see this as a lack, you know. So societally, as human beings, also, it's like, oh, what do you mean you can't do it? Or like, what do you mean that doesn't exist anymore? We can sometimes also see ourselves as lacking or lagging behind or not being part of the future, you know, if we are not relevant or not able to be somewhere. But I actually think this is on the contrary. We can all be somewhere perfect because there's certain type of diminishing or unable energy. Because something is diminishing or diminished or unable, unavailable, cannot be or cannot yet occur, we can actually have all of this room, all of this space, and all of this energy to be able to do something else or not. And also, like, the idea of having absolutely nothing to do and the idea of having nobody by your side is actually a cleansing and a clarifying feeling. So we have to basically, I feel, as a people, get used to the lull being a normal part of the day, just like the seasons. You know, winter comes for a reason, for certain parts of the world to function the way they do. Yes, there is, you know, for certain ecosystem and for a certain person, there is a lull. And that has to be treated gratefully, also as, you know, age, like old age or like winter, you know, anything. And if you are experiencing, of course, the change of seasons as summer is walking into autumn, or as winter's walking into spring on the other side of the world, that's a very, very nice relationship that you have with yourself. So, like, looking forward and looking further than this. Oh, I expected that. Now, where is it? Expectation, that's the worst thing that can happen. Virgo does expect, you know, and sometimes we get like our heads all screwed, like really crazy, because we don't understand which way is the best way to apply expectation and certainty. Certainty is always going to be a part of any earth sign. That's just how it is. Like, I expect, you know, like I expect the foundations of this house to last, you know, like I expect to eat some food today, or I expect to get some rest, you know. So expectation is a very nice thing, and it's very, very emotional, but for some people it's going to get very externalized, very extreme, and also it can turn into disrespect and dissonance amongst people and relationships and community. So we have to somehow find a way that we can unburden ourselves from, like, knowing that probably, aha, okay, it's been part of my family line. For example, if you have a lot of wealth in your family or a lot of obsession with detail in your family, do I really have to experience or express myself in such a way? Did I ever really have to be a part of a community or a prism in which expectation is such a big deal? Did I ever need to be so expectant of that person? So expectation, like being loyal if a person cannot be loyal, you know, or like shouldn't have to be loyal, expecting somebody to do something for you that they just would not or cannot or just don't want to do. And then eventually we have to evolve past this. So, like, the feeling is very, very flamboyant and very, very kind of boyish and girlish. It's a youthful feeling. We do have Mars going through Gemini also. Yes, Jupiter is, of course, in Aries. There is a nice flamboyance about this time. And yes, we're going through a tiger year. So there's a buoyant energy. There is still a lot of life in all of this, even though there might be some stuff closing down. And there is like a certain type of person that might simply not make it through. We want to take care of ourselves here and not rush, but yeah, there is like an eye of the needle feeling that sometimes a tiger year has. So that means you can push through or rush through, or some kind of force that you didn't generate yourself, as if, you know, like it just like pulls you into a new dimension or a new circumstance. This is a very, very hard feeling sometimes for me to see, that like people don't understand it, people don't feel it. There's quite a lot of people that don't respect a person that can just get up and go and change their vibration very fast during times like these. Sometimes people are expected to stay put and to be even left behind rather than to be too fast, too quick, too soon. So it kind of sort of depends on how you are measured and how your timeline or, you know, energy has so far been distributed. Yes, I definitely do believe a lot of us can just rush through, zoom through, and kind of bounce into that next category of person. Imagine a category of person. You can go from, say, a person with no wealth to great wealth here. You can go from a person that is working in a very median strategy or very median part of society into a very high quantum and high quality state of work and inner worth. There's lots of people that are going to go basically from zero to hero, but there is like no real passion behind it. It's just that the person has done enough clearing, enough goodbyes, enough conscious work on themselves, or just like enough relationship sprucing and clearing, or enough organization to basically say like, oh gosh, lighten up, I don't need any of this anymore, I'm just gonna zoom right through. So if you're one of those people, if you're a very, very lucky strategist, chances are you don't really have a root system as well, which is something that I found to be very difficult for me and for a lot of people. Like in the past, root systems do feed us and they do take us further, like, so knowing your ancestry and understanding the cause and effect of your time zone and timeline, that's very, very good. But then for a lot of other people, I understand that respect isn't important. Doing things step by step or being side by side with very, very wholesome, very good people isn't really that big a deal. And I do understand that the strategist and the occasional entrepreneur and a person that can be very, very fast and very, very fetching and very, very clear in terms of what they think and they see, because we have Mars and a sign of Gemini is about vision. I want this, I like this, that's what I want to do. Sometimes, yeah, in some people's cases, it can be above the rest. So like there are sometimes people that can simply project an idea outwards and that they can get a result as soon as they can. And there are so many people working like that now, and I do understand there's like huge industries online and even beyond and above that. Like there's lots of people that are walking out of that grinding, slow, conscious, caring life and walking into that very, very fast and even slightly maniacal reality. But we don't have to like look at that person and say, hey, what did they do that I didn't do? It all depends on you. So yeah, for some people in different ways, like there's different elements. I'm seeing like in some people's lives, there's going to be an obvious yes and no, and there's going to be such a brightness and such an exquisite change of pace and just a hugeness to their aura or their energy field, and they're going to just zoom through. So yes, it is to do about Venus going through a communicative sign of Virgo, of course, communicative Mars and Gemini, and yes, communicative Neptune, of course. Like there is a very, very deep connective emotional energy to everything that you probably wanted to do being kind of like open now, available, if you are on that level. So if you are a very, very conscious, caring, light-hearted person, if you've chosen color during this particular life, imagine, and especially during this very symbolic time of Tiger, if you just decided to, or you are just deciding to be just lighthearted and that you don't want to criticize anybody, you don't want to sit there talking about your mum, you don't want to talk about your day, you don't care about what anybody said and done, you don't want to wash your old trauma again and again and again in a bucket of blood, sweat, and tears, you don't care about who you are, who you were, and how much time you've put into anything, yeah, go act. So I do definitely feel that there are quite a lot of very, very positive and new up and coming people, but how long this lasts is a question mark. So there's a question mark here. How long does this last? Will this have a next phase? So sometimes people also with no root system or with no real true understanding of who they are, who they were, who they've ever been, just like acting or like going about life sometimes on a whim or like just inspired, just because of inspiration. That happens to us sometimes as a people. They sometimes don't have a strong enough root system or a territory to be able to actually make it work. Sure, that person gets a line in a movie, but they won't get any more parts for a long time or ever at all. So like this is where you, for example, get lucky. Yes, gambling. Imagine this time for gamblers, interesting. Interesting time for gamblers. You might get a lucky strike once and that's it, and never again in your life. So like that's the thing. It's like the one time, but like this has to be very much like I think filtered in terms of like talking about like gambling and like lucky strikes and stuff. We have to be very, very knowing as to what this all means. So like I like for once, just letting you know, haven't been very well in my life simply because my consciousness has been rootless. So that means that I didn't want a root system. I didn't feel that a house was an important part of my day, and my partner or whoever didn't really even have to be there physically. So I didn't really understand what it was that other people were even saying or thinking about. And then eventually I grew up out of that, and I started to understand that to imagine myself old and to live a happy, healthy, and successful life, I do have to have some kind of root base level strategy. And that's basically what I have today. And that's been very, very good. But I've also noticed that there is definitely a limitation. So, I mean, we have that celestial part of us, that kind of knows everything. And it's like, you know what, like, fluff all this. Like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I will do whatever I want, and my life will always work out, and God will always save me and protect me. Like that's great, yeah. But then we also have the planet Earth, right? And not just the Earth, but just like the nurturing, simple, step-by-step ways in which reality slowly, in a way, pulls things in and helps them grow, and pulls things in and helps them grow. So if we look at a natural ecosystem, the ergonomics of life and just how the planet works and how people go about their day is just about, the living things, evolving slowly through a passage of light and dark, or like through, safety and fear, and, knowing and not knowing, and caring and not caring, so like all of these different pathways and things that happen underneath the ground, and things that we don't even know exist. That's all within this special, very basic way in which life has been itself for the longest time possible. I mean, it's been like this for such a long time. Like it's been here, like just waiting for us to notice her, And I think that's a very, very clear and creative way to be. Also, that also, in saying this, so when I mean, this could be like seriously like a 7-hour conversation now. If we look at like say traditional on what doesn't have to be, don't worry. We look at tradition and culture and tribalism, and that quite a lot of these innocent, sincere, and root full ways are kind of like covered up with a lot of strategy. And there is culture, there is different types of races and cultures and colors, and representation of the divine and beliefs and systems of life that came out of these beliefs, and not all of them are good as well. So I talk a little bit about this in the Patreon audios for the signs. You got to like basically be careful here, because rooting in and being humble is good, and associating with a simple process in which life is life, and night is night and day is day, that's fantastic. But we also have to understand that in cultures of yesterday, traditional tribal and some ethnic practices, there is also like something bad and something unclean, and something that has been done to many, many people, and that shouldn't be repeated. So that's very interesting. It's like the binding of feet, or like say circumcision of the female or the male. So like there is like a very, very interesting way in which we have been cut and pulled under by tradition and traditionalism. And I do definitely understand that the root system we don't have to have intact the way that I probably have imagined for the last few videos. And I do definitely understand that we don't really necessarily want to repeat the patterns of the past to get good at something. Sometimes like glamorizing the previous eras of life, or the previous people that lived before us, our ancestors, or just the way of yesteryear. We think we're going to get it right because that seems like it was without harm or damage. But here we are in today's age, and part of what we're going through now is basically a direct link to the ancestry and to the past. So we can't really see it as past and future or present. It's just a continuum line So in some ways, I definitely do get it. Some people don't want to talk a lot about the past and understanding or empathizing with their family member or like their grandparents or their ancestry, as they do not believe or trust in it. So I do definitely understand that some people just want to kind of spurt through and they want to go past all of those different dimensions that society, culture, tradition, and tribe has made to kind of hold back that young energy and make it work for them, make it work for the team, make it work for the whole. And then I do understand like why some people don't care about the past and where it's been, and they don't want to make anything for it. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to like live once and have a great time, okay? And I don't care if my plans fall on their face within just a few weeks, just as long as I am happy and I'm relevant for myself, which is what I think a lot of people during this Virgo time are going to experience. And then also there is this other part, and that's the karmic part, and I think this is the heaviest part during this time, is like having this old world view and like shaking your finger and saying that's not how the world works. And I do definitely know what that's about. So I'm going to just change the subject because it's kind of like grinding me down. It's a little bit heavy on my brain. Okay, so I have discovered this program, as I'm sure many of you guys have. It's an artificial intelligence program that makes illustrations and images, and it's called Midjourney, I believe. Midjourney. It's very, very interesting. I've just developed a series of illustrations for my next book that I'm going to publish very soon. It is about 2023, and it is just a book of predictions. I do a book of predictions every single year. So this is a very interesting thing for me as an illustrator, because I used to, like, this used to be my job. You know, I did this for fun last year, but like, I used to do this as a job. I used to be an illustrator, and now I'm finding it very easy to let go, I suppose. So like finding out that there's programs that make illustrations for you without even like having to pay for it. Seriously, like this program is pretty much like, it's almost free. Like, you know what I mean? You just like enter whatever you want and then you get whatever you like, you know, and then you edit it a little bit and then you change it to your liking and then you let go and do something else. It's a really, really incredible program, but that's not art. And I do understand that, you know, a lot of people saying, you know, like these AI generated images are not art. I, as an ex-artist, illustrator, I used to be a digital illustrator. I know what that is, and I know, like, I knew for a long time that was like a dying thing. Like, not necessarily dying, it was very corrupted, because a lot of people just basically like paid me or other illustrators to do something that other people have done already. So they wanted an existing style, they just wanted you to replicate, or like they would want an illustrator to replicate, or simply develop their idea, and it wasn't really creativity after all. And then like to watch other people go through art school, for example, and seeing what they've done and like the monstrosities that they walked out with, you know, like their portfolio was just like kind of like beaten up pieces of junk, like stuck together. Not everything, but a lot of it. Like a lot of people that went to art school during my age, my youth, like you know, so many years ago, I was really like surprised and kind of disappointed as to what art has become, because not many people with a art portfolio after university could really show it to anybody, because it was just so scary looking and weird and gross and just like looked like it came out of somebody else's like nightmare or something. And that's the thing, it's like the aesthetic pleasure of art lost itself, and then illustration became a big deal. And that's when I saw a lot of like Japanese style illustration take over the West. And if you're a girl, if you're a geek, sorry, if you're a nerd and you love manga, you probably know like there's like a huge scene of like, say, Japanese art in America today and like around the world. And basically most people just imitate Japanese cartoons and Japanese manga style, and even like portraits, how people paint portraits these days are just like just manga in part. And also like I've noticed that like for me that's when I completely didn't want to do art anymore, because I just knew what it was going to do. It was just going to become candy floss basically. And then a lot of people that really wanted to be artists, I mean, I think that they really struggled, or they had to fail so many times, or they did fail because they took themselves too seriously. And what the world was, it's just like these two different faces. There were many more than two, but these main faces, like the sweet, kind, and cuddly sort of like Japanese inspired world of like whim and love and fortune that's based on the recycled, reproduced, kind of juvenile system of trust that the Japanese people developed, through their forums, and through their ideal proportions, because it's very idealist society. It's beautiful, beautiful world, but it's like this really fluffy world. And then on the other side, there's this like really ugly, grotesque, and disgusting world of modern art, which I think most people are embarrassed by, and most people that go to these museums are just like ashamed. And the older generation, I think, probably understands it a little bit more than the younger, but like, my gosh, there's some monstrosity out there. So these like two like different faces of creative visual creativity. And then like, of course, there's like the crafts, people like making stuff and putting it online. Never mind, like there's lots of different things. And then I suppose why I'm saying all of this now is because now like it takes you like a second to make an illustration, and I knew it was gonna fall. Like I knew it was gonna fail when I saw like American or Canadian artists like copying Japanese style art and making it their own, and everything was just so pop. Like everything was very pop, and then also the faces of people became pop. So this is quite interesting for me. So when I started to see like how much surgery people had on their face to be online, and what was glamorous and beautiful today was basically like a Disney princess type of look, or Barbie, and that was really scary for me as well. And then I kind of like walked out of it. So for me, like something like Midjourney, like this program, is really fantastic because I really can see it now. I think a lot of people have to walk out of this candy poppin' sort of like fake reality and see the truth that it is unsustainable and is irrelevant, and most of it isn't actually about art or expressing anything. It's just about mass production. And I love that the computer world has figured out a way of just like basically mass producing these things. And as heartless and heartbreaking as it is, I'm sure, like, say if you're an artist and you've spent your life in front of a Photoshop, like learning how to paint, or Painter, like there's another tool online, like a digital tool called Painter, painting. And if you just like made your life about that, it's just such a crazy thing to know that these things can be done pretty much for free by like by this program. And yeah, I mean, I'm sort of not feeling like I'm talking really about anything here, and it is 37 minutes here. But I do have to say that this is still relevant for me, because I think that there's so many futures that we can have beyond what we've imagined. And also, we're going into this year of the rabbit, and I've been writing this book about the year of the rabbit for a little while. And I got to tell you, we got to wipe the previous spectrum clean, because we got tiger, then we got rabbit, then we got dragon. So we got these two giant entities, and between them we got this lulling rabbit year 2023, and we've got to basically prepare for a better, more ergonomic system. And if we are in Virgo now, we're talking systems and ergonomics and things that are neutral, natural, and happy to be, and things that are alkaline enough or conscious enough to pursue and to respect. So this is about clarity, and to me it feels that what we basically now have to do is accept those young, fresh, up-and-coming ways, not shake a fist at anybody, not shake a finger at anybody, not get aggressive or too emotional or too intelligent about things, and basically become free. So like the whole concept here is like the artist, that's been slaving away in front of their like Wacom tablet, completely becoming free. Like the idea of being unlimited, a person sitting there in front of a computer, like counting on their cryptocurrencies or like other things that they play with, like becoming free. Becoming free. So this is probably the best way to, I suppose, associate to this particular month ahead, is just basically bringing yourself to that level when you understand that there is no actual deliberate grind or emotional or personal or karmic thing about this Virgo month. It's all just, it's not like an irony. This is an irony. My head is so heavy on my shoulders. It's an irony. It's not an irony. It's just basically about deliberately, consciously, and clearly walking out of the previous prison that we have been in, and allowing oneself to expand way beyond in comfort. So this is not about like, grabbing a little like sack and like walking off with bare feet and walking through the snow and the mountains and the hills. It's like actually about being free. And even that doesn't feel so bad, like when I'm describing that character, I think that we all have to basically walk out there and walk away. So like walking away from rumors, walking away from unsustainable cultures, walking away from bad parenting, walking away from possessions, walking away from being possessed, walking from being in possession of another person, walking away and just past it. So like that's the feeling, that's a fresh, joyful, and ergonomic, Virgan feeling that I'm feeling about this month specifically. And then I feel within it also as a new culture being born. I feel there's a youthful, shy, free, and maybe pointless, sure, whatever, romantic youth. Like it's just like playfulness. It's good, it's goofy, it's funny, it's fresh, it's skin deep though. I do understand. A lot of this energy is very skin deep, but it is comfortable and it is maybe a little bit coy because it is so intense inside and it is fragile. So I feel that these are kind of like learning steps. I think these are pass away messages. I think that quite a lot of things that are continuing to be during this time, these little cycles, these little sort of like avalanches of thought, they're trying to make something better. It's like the young people walking out, like trying to make a better world. It's like there's like this freedom, and then there's this freshness, and also this other face, so there's like these two faces, and the other face is just like this old grandma shaking a fist. You don't know nothing about life, so I think it's just really important to be free. And sometimes, yeah, these are short-lived energies, and I do get it. It's to me feeling that most of us are really, really open and like we're welcoming that new future. It's just that we don't really fully know what it's gonna be yet. And something about, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. It's, in part, I do definitely feel it's that. I think that for some people it's a little futile what they're trying to do now or where they are, but like there is such freedom within it, and there is such flavor, and I love the flavor, I love the style. I really feel like there is so much consciousness within this month, and there is so much dull, difficult, and hateful things that have ever been done or said that will just leave. They will just go. And then when Libra comes, we're going to have a completely different set of eyes on the world and a completely different skill set. And yes, we do have an equinox this month around, and I'll be talking about that later on. We do have to open, and then like even if the rain comes, even if the clouds are dark, just stay open, and then like try to stay in a way like spaced out and quiet within yourself. Like, so that's like the way that I'm kind of feeling about this September is staying innocent and vulnerable, and then allowing like the body and the mind to be what it is, and not pack so much on and not be like such a sort of like sergeant about one's life. So I think that's the main concept about this, is to dilute and allow dilution, and also to celebrate it. Thank you very much. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.